YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Carl coming back at you from Golden Grimmett Productions. This time around, I am going to be reacting to Making the Case Bill Russell. I did a poll recently where I asked who I should react to next, and Bill Russell was one of the players that you guys said that I should react to. If you are new, please like, share, and subscribe to the video and the channel as well. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the continued support. So we're going to get straight into this video.
Imagine what I'm trying to do. I'm speaking to the most data-driven, analytically obsessed, statistically fixated generation of basketball fans that has ever lived. And I'm not just speaking to you, I'm making the argument that the greatest player of all time is one who, rather than scoring in high volume or with top-notch efficiency, excelled at defense, an aspect of the game that went virtually unrecorded for this player's entire career, an aspect which, even today, the most advanced metrics still provide an incomplete picture of. More than that though, this player excelled in the wrinkles of basketball, manipulating the fabric of the game into his own design. This player is remembered for his unparalleled ability to lead, to inspire, to foster cohesion and self-sacrifice in favor of loftier goals, to dance along the line that blurs team and brotherhood. These empirically irrelevant skills resulted in the most successful professional sports dynasty in North American history. To begin making Russell's case, I want you to remember these legendary words from NFL head coach Herm Edwards. You play to win the game. It doesn't matter who you are, what your abilities are, what level you're playing at, what kind of sport you're playing, or who you're up against. You play to win the game. Remember that as we talk about Bill Russell. You play to win the game. Because when you look at sports and competition at its fundamental level, it is that simple. So, did he win? Hell yes, he won. In his 13 NBA seasons, Bill Russell captured 11 titles, more than any other.
Bro, that's just crazy. Bro, 57, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 68, 69. Jesus, like from 60 to 66, bro, they just was like, matter of fact, take that back, from 59 to 66, they didn't lose. Now, I'm going into this subjectively because a lot of people basically gauge the greatest player of all time by how many rings, their amount of scoring. And I think Bill Russell never averaged over 20-some points, I think, for his career. So I'm going into this subjectively because I don't know too much about him. So I'm not going to speak as if I know a lot about Bill Russell and the Celtics back then. So this is going to be a learning thing for me as well, man. So be easy on me in the comment section.
Other professional team athlete of note. 8 of them came consecutively. I'll come right out and say it. If you want the GOAT conversation to be about winning, oh yeah, this guy had a great career, but this other guy just wanted to win more. This guy wanted to win more than anything. That's why he's better. I want winners. If that's the way we're gonna do this, then you have to crown Bill Russell. But was Russell an awe-inspiring athletic specimen? Nope. For that kind of player, you look to guys like Wilt and Shaq and LeBron. Was he a transcendent scorer? Like I said earlier, no. Players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were in another stratosphere in that department. Here's what Bill Russell was. He was a natural athlete at 6'10". He glided across the court with the balance and grace of a 6'3" guard. Vertically, he was springy and had the uncanny ability to seemingly jump twice in the same instant. He was strong, but surprisingly lean and gangly, 220 pounds of all arms and legs. He had a level of anticipation and awareness that was second to none. Put it all together and you get the second highest rebounding average of any player ever. You also get the most domineering defender in basketball history. Historically, Russell was a basketball pioneer in an almost literal sense. In high school and college, he was told constantly that to be a great defender, you had to keep your feet on the floor at all times, so as to afford yourself the most maneuverability possible. Russell refuted these ideas, and instead leapt emphatically to meet defenders around the rim and block their shots into the arms of his teammates. Guys from back then described Russell as an almost nightmarish entity, someone who would lurk in plain sight and strike without warning. He would wage psychological warfare on his enemies through intimidation and exude an aura that demanded an equal amount of fear and respect. He could guard behemoths at his position like Wilt and Nate Thurmond, but he could also switch onto guards with an insignificant drop in proficiency. Moreover, at the NBA level, with Red Auerbach's help, Russell became the linchpin in the Boston Celtics' patented fast break offense. Russell would contest a shot, secure the rebound, and push the ball forward to his streaking teammates so as to attack a defense on its heels. I know that doesn't sound like much today. The fast break is a part of every offensive system in the NBA and has been for decades. But Russell deserves credit as being the anchor of the NBA's most prolific defense and for being the cornerstone of an innovative offensive system. Wait, Bill Russell was an innovative offensive player? But I thought he had sub-average offensive numbers. His shooting percentages weren't very good. He didn't average that many points. What are you getting at, Clayton? The truth, my good man. But seriously, free your mind from the idea that a great offensive player can only be the guy who puts the ball through the net. Russell's court vision and passing ability were the keys to the engine of the Boston offense. You don't care though. His stats weren't good, and that's that. So let's talk about statistics. The important statistics in basketball are supposed to be points scored, rebounds, and assists. But nobody keeps statistics on other important things. The good fake you make that helps your teammates score. The bad pass you force the other team to make. The good long pass you make that sets up another pass, that sets up another pass that leads to a score. The way you recognize when one of your teammates has a hot hand that night and you give up your own shot so that he can take it. All of those things. Those were some of the things we excelled in that you won't find in the statistics.
We call it the eye test. The things that we see, but we don't see. You know what I'm saying? Like the things that they don't note down, but we all see it. Now, Bill Russell's era of basketball isn't the most prettiest to look at. It was revolutionary at the time. We penalized players for the eras that they played in, but you could only play who's in front of you at the time that you played them. So,
statistics. There was only one statistic that was important to us. Won and lost. Whoops, sorry. I slipped into first person there because I was reading a Bill Russell quote. As if my job wasn't hard enough, stats like steals and blocks, defensive stats, didn't start getting recorded until the mid-70s. The only stat I can give you is defensive win shares. Games that a team won that can be attributed in part or in full to a player's defensive contributions. No one has yet to come within even 80% of matching Bill Russell's 13-year career total in that category. And now we're back to winning. The most important virtue of an athlete, right? It's how this debate always goes. 3 rings is more than 2. 5 rings is more than 3. 6 rings is more than 5. So why isn't 11 the largest number? I'll tell you why. There are 3 main reasons that people don't acknowledge the most decorated champion of all time as the greatest of all time. In the order I'll talk about them, they are that Wilt was better, that his era was weak, and that his team was stacked. First up, we have his friend, rival, and antithesis, Wilt Chamberlain. The careers of Wilt and Russell overlapped for about 10 years, and in those 10 years, the two became harbingers of the NBA as we know it. Their friendship, play styles, size, and championship disparity painted the two as inverses of each other. They are immortalized together as two sides of the same coin. Because they played in a bygone era, many basketball fans take to all-time leaderboards and the pages of record books to gain a better understanding of these two men. Statistically, the comparison is a no contest. Wilt was and is a basketball anomaly. Wilt scored the most points in a game ever, had the most points in a season, remains the league's all-time rebounder, logged the most rebounds in a game, and so on. And not only did Wilt set all of these records, but he put the bar so far out of reach that we'll see colonies on Mars before we see all of his records surpassed. How do I even begin to suggest that Russell is the superior basketball player? Russell played in the same era, and so you'd think he would benefit from the same era advantages like Wilt did. But where Wilt averaged 30 points a game, Russell averaged just a paltry 15. Their field goal percentages are similarly lopsided. Only in rebounding do the two seem comparable, with staggering averages and untouchable career totals. There's really no argument, right? Well, the two played 143 total games against each other. That's almost 15% of all the games that Bill Russell ever played in. In the 94 regular season games they went head-to-head, Russell's team won 57 times. In the 49 playoff games that they saw each other, Russell's team won 29 times. But hey, those are team records. Even looking at the box scores of those games and playoff series show that Wilt got his no matter what. Surely there must be some way to award a player for his individual expertise. Something like the MVP award. the most valuable player, the player who adds the most to his team and gives them the best chance to win, regardless of the players that he plays with. That should be worth something, right? Especially considering that, until 1980, the MVP award was voted on by the league's players. If Russell's teams were so unfairly stacked, surely his peers would see this and understand that he was simply the beneficiary of a rigged system, right? And they'd give Wilt the award year in and year out because he was the best individual, right? Right. Look, Wilt won 4 MVP awards during his career. But it's not as many as Russell. Russell won the NBA's most prestigious award, signifying the most valuable individual talent in the NBA, 5 times. The rest of the NBA looked at the Boston Celtics, however talented they might have been, and recognized that it was Bill Russell who made them tick, and they had no problem voting him over Wilt. You want to know Russell's favorite award that he ever won in the NBA? His 1962 NBA MVP award. Why? Because that was the season Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double, and it was the year that Wilt averaged...
No lie, it was a lot of firsts in their era. Big O was the first person to average a triple-double, which we've seen that being basically passed with Russell Westbrook. Wilt Chamberlain averaging 100. Not averaging, Lord forgive me, scoring 100. Bill Russell winning 11 championships. Bro, they had some juggernauts in that era, bro, and people don't like to talk about that. Because you can't deny that Big O's numbers were comparable to what it is now.
Averaged 50 points a game. Russell averaged 18 points and 29 rebounds. Wilt's Warriors would take the Celtics to a Game 7 in that year's playoffs, only to lose in the game's dying seconds. Russell held the Wilt Chamberlain that had averaged 50 points that season to just 28 in the most important game of the season. And in the finals, the Celtics would find themselves in another Game 7 against the Lakers, this time in an overtime period that would decide the champion. Sam Jones and Bill Russell combined for 9 points in overtime, giving Boston their 4th championship in a row. Russell would end the game with 30 points and 44 rebounds. And now, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret.
30 points and 44 rebounds, Jesus.
I wasn't alive to see Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. There's a level of context I'll never have because I didn't live through that era. So why don't we hear from some of the people who did? Jerry West, Chamberlain's teammate from 1969 to 1973, said, "I don't want to rap Wilt because I believe only Russell was better, and I really respect what Wilt did. But I have to say, he wouldn't adjust to you. You had to adjust to him." 1975 Finals MVP and Hall of Famer Rick Barry said, "I'll say what most players feel, which is that Wilt is a loser. He is terrible in big games. When it comes down to the closing minutes of a tough game, an important game, he doesn't want the ball. He doesn't want any part of the pressure. It is at these times that greatness is determined, and Wilt doesn't have it." Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1990 wrote this, an open letter to Wilt Chumperlame. "It's been several years now, Wilt, that you have been criticizing my career with your friends in the press. After any tough test in which you didn't do well, you blamed those around you and quit. People will remember that I worked with my teammates and helped us win. You will be remembered as a whining crybaby and a quitter, stats and all." Stories abound about Wilt's infatuation with statistics, from correcting scorekeepers to scolding teammates for not making baskets that would have counted towards his assist totals. In 1965, the Warriors felt that Wilt was toxic and decided to trade him. One of the prospective landing spots for the Big Dipper was none other than the Los Angeles Lakers, where Jerry West and Elgin Baylor desperately needed someone to throw at Russell. The Lakers management decided to poll the players on whether the team should trade for Chamberlain. The poll resulted in a 9-2 decision against bringing Wilt to the team. Is it fair to call Wilt a loser?
Wait, so they didn't even want Wilt? But then again, a personality like that, I can see why it would be hard to want to play with a player like that. Because like I said, he only focused on stats. He don't care about the team. He don't care about the pressure. And from what I was told, Wilt basically didn't really care about the game. He was like a playboy. Yeah, that type of mentality in the game wouldn't have worked anyway. You ain't going to have no fun with your teammates. Your teammates aren't going to like you. Y'all ain't going to mesh too well. And they were trying to win championships.
No. But did he make his teammates better?
Camera dot.
Rarely.
1 second.
Wilt played in 9 Game 7s. Russell played in 10. Wilt lost 5 of his. Russell never did. Okay, but back then there were like 8 teams, nobody was very tall, there was just a bunch of scrawny non-athletes. Russell couldn't hold Joel Embiid's jockstrap today. If you abide by the "yeah, he was good for his time, but he couldn't hang today" mindset, I need you to be consistent. I need you to acknowledge that across the board. You've painted yourself into a corner that states that the greatest athlete will always be the newest one. That Aroldis Chapman is historically a greater baseball player than Babe Ruth, because Chapman would smoke Babe Ruth like a dad playing wiffle ball with his son. That if someday the NBA implements a 4-point shot, you immediately have to look at Steph Curry and say, yeah, he was a good shooter for his time, but he couldn't cut it today. His era was easier. If he played today, he'd just be an average shooter. In that world, no one will ever hold the crown for long, because time will pass, and modern athletes inevitably age into ancient ones. So isn't the fairest way to evaluate these players to look at what they did in the context of their eras? I think so, because I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Everybody had era-specific advantages. Great players are great because they exploit them. Alright, let's try to get some context. I think that Russell's 11 championships actually hurt him historically in this way. It's such an incomprehensible number that it just lends itself to people trying to poke holes in it or find ways to discredit him. 11 is just too big of a number, right? Jordan has 6, and we know the stories of all 6. We can remember who LeBron and Kobe beat to win their championships and what it meant to them. It's hard to do that with 11, and it's even harder to do that when they happened in the ballpark of 60 years ago. I briefly touched on 62, so here's a little more context for you. After 8 straight titles for Boston, Wilt and the 1967 76ers put the league on notice. They won a league record 68 games and disrupted the Celtics' streak in just 5 games. They put the ribbon on their season weeks later when they won the championship. And then, the very next year, the 76ers entered the playoffs with the best record in the league. Wilt led the league in assists and won the MVP. When they met the Celtics in the Eastern Finals, they racked up a 3-1 lead. And then, as player-coach of the Celtics, Bill Russell engineered the greatest comeback basketball had ever seen, becoming the first team to ever overcome a 3-1 deficit. Wilt did not attempt a field goal in the second half of Game 7. Russell did damn near everything to ice the game in its final minute. 1966 was Red Auerbach's last year. He began the season by telling his contemporaries that this was their last shot to beat him. After defeating the Oscar Robertson Royals and Wilt's 76ers, the Lakers and the Celtics went the distance in the finals. In Game 7, an inspired Russell helped fend off an intense Lakers rally in the final period, tallying 25 points and 32 rebounds to send his coach out as a winner. Go look up his teams. You'll see that 1965 was Russell's best team. You might think it was easier back then though, because Russell was playing against a bunch of nobodies. And you've got me there. He only had to go through Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Hal Greer, Dolph Schayes, Oscar Robertson, Willis Reed, Nate Thurmond, Walt Frazier, and Bob Pettit. You know, a bunch of nobodies.
Facts. They had a lot of great players back then, and people don't like to talk about that.
The fact is that the weak era argument is, more often than not, an excuse made by people who want to discredit a player from before their time who can't be bothered to look them up and try to learn about them. Listen, I know it's crazy to think about how long basketball's been around. I know it's crazy trying to convince you that the first truly great player from the game's first truly great era was the greatest of them all. The odds that the first model was the best model are astronomical. It doesn't make it impossible though. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that 8 teams actually made the league tougher, or that players from back then were just as good as they are today. And I don't have to. We're looking at this in context. The league was chock full of Hall of Famers and all-time greats, and the Celtics played in enough Game 7s that any rational observer would look at it and see that it wasn't easy for Russell. But wait, there's more. Because it wasn't just that Russell played in a weak era. He played with the better team every single year. If you didn't know, I've actually already made the case that Wilt was the greatest basketball player of all time. And I said this: Bill Russell consistently had better teammates than Wilt Chamberlain did. That's as good as a fact to me, and I will maintain it even when I make the case for Bill Russell. So here I am saying it. Bill Russell often had the best team in the NBA. And that makes sense, right? You don't win one championship without a great team, let alone 11. And Russell had a great team, a legendary coach, and talented teammates. Bob Cousy was the league's second MVP ever, and John Havlicek helped lead the Celtics to 2 more titles in the 70s. Plus, guys like Casey Jones, Bill Sharman, Frank Ramsey, Tommy Heinsohn, and Sam Jones are all in the Hall of Fame. But is it that simple? Like I said earlier, the players voted on MVPs during those days, and Russell won 5 of them. So, however stacked his team might have felt to the rest of the league, they still acknowledged that Russell made it all work. And look at those Hall of Famers that Russell played with and how many championships they won. There's no way the Hall of Fame could leave these guys out, right? So was it that Russell was actually playing alongside a 12-man roster of Monstars? Or were those guys Hall of Famers because they played alongside Bill Russell? I would argue that he had the better team all those years because those teams all had Bill Russell. He never cared about anything other than winning. He put himself and his teammates in position to win, time and time and time again. I know I keep repeating the number, but 11 championships. That's not a fluke. That's a team galvanized by a once-in-a-generation talent and a once-in-a-lifetime leader. There's no evidence that indicates that the Celtics would have enjoyed anything close to the amount of successes they did without Russell. The year before they got Russ, they were 39-33. The year after he retired, they were 34-48. Russell would throw up before big games throughout his career. It was a ritual that his teammates initially found unsettling, but eventually came to find a serene confidence in. Bill was setting an example. Their best player, despite all of the honors that he had won, and all of the champagne he had drank, still cared that much about winning. That's maybe the most impressive thing to me. He never rested on his laurels, never used past accomplishments as justifications for anything. He withstood the test of time and the temptations of self-interest. He never stopped caring, and so his teammates didn't either. So when Sam Jones hits a game winner, or Tom Heinsohn explodes in a playoff game, don't take credit away from them, but know that they are the ones who will tell you that it was Russell who made it all possible. Please don't make me keep going. Fine. Bill Russell was cut from his high school JV team in his sophomore season. He was raw, lacked fundamentals, and was driven by unrefined passion alone. Then, as a junior and senior, he led the team to back-to-back state titles. Colleges didn't care though, and he didn't receive a single offer from any college. That is, until a scout from the University of San Francisco saw him and offered him a scholarship. In his 3 varsity years at USF, Russell helped turn a relatively unremarkable team into a perennial powerhouse. He went 71-8 and won 2 national championships. His junior year, the Dons started the season unranked. By the end of the season, they were the #1 team in the country and the national champions. In his senior year, the team went undefeated and carried the #1 ranking wire to wire. At one point, USF had a win streak of 55 games. Of the players on that team, only Casey Jones would go on to the NBA and, ironically, to play with Russell. Bill Russell is basketball Midas. Every team he touches turns to gold. And oh, by the way, Bill Russell's career coincided with the civil rights movement of the 1960s in a truly surreal way. He endured a disheartening amount of injustice during his career with a grace and pride that is worthy of remembrance in and of itself. But he did more than that, using his position to challenge the establishments around him and effect change. He was a leading voice at the Muhammad Ali Summit in Cleveland. He was at the March on Washington and in attendance for Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. He didn't attend his own Hall of Fame induction because he thought that someone like Chuck Cooper deserved to be the first African American inductee rather than himself. He was denied room.
Bill Russell was a real one. He was a real one for sure. Like, he had a lot of good morals, bro. He endured a lot during that time. I'm learning a lot from this video.
In hotels and service in restaurants on basketball road trips. And so he refused to play. When Red Auerbach retired after the '66 season, Russell became the first black head coach in any of the 4 major American sports. While he was playing for the Celtics, vandals broke into his suburban home, spray-painted racist graffiti on the walls, broke his trophies, and defecated on his bed. His contributions to the civil rights movement are as important and notable as any other athlete. He helped light the torch that athletes today continue to carry. Does this necessarily make him the greatest player of all time? No. But when you think about what he was able to accomplish, I don't know how you could be anything but awestruck.
Hey, look, I appreciate this video. I'm very subjective about everything, and I see everything for what it is. I'm not gonna sit here and down any player from any era based off of how the lack of teams or what we view as what makes a GOAT. The GOAT is subjective. Every era has their GOAT, and they'll debate you on it. So, respectfully, I respect everybody's opinion when it comes to the GOAT status. because the criteria for what the GOAT is always changes based off of what a player's done. For Jordan, 6 championships, but Bill Russell had more. For LeBron fans, the most points scored ever, but he has less championships than Jordan. A lot of people view Kareem as their GOAT. A lot of people have Wilt as their GOAT. Larry Bird as their GOAT. Whoever your GOAT is, just respect others' opinions. That's it. It don't take nothing to respect people's opinions, man. But I enjoyed this video. I greatly appreciate everybody who's continued to watch with me. The next one I plan to do will be making the case for Wilt Chamberlain and then making the case for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But until the next one, it's been your boy Carl from Golden Grimmett Productions. Peace.